You're watching the Run For It YouTube channel. I'm Finlay, and this episode is on the Brooks Hyperion Max 3 running shoes. Brooks kindly supplied us with a pair for testing. So in this review, we'll cover the tech, how they feel to run in, and what they're best suited to. Hope you enjoy. Let's start with the tech then. The midsole features two layers of foam. There's a top layer of DNA gold foam and a bottom layer of DNA Flash V2. It's roughly a 50-50 split. Now, DNA gold foam is created through a high pressure autoclave that takes 100% Peba foam and pressurizes it to the point where it can be fully infused with nitrogen. And as a result, this 100% nitrogen infused Peba foam is the lightest, softest, and highest energy returning foam that Brooks has ever produced. And while the supercritical nitrogen infused DNA Flash V2 foam on the bottom layer still offers lots of energy return, it's a slightly firmer compound, and that makes it more inherently stable. And if you look at the bottom of the shoe, you can see the Speedvault plate that's running between the two layers of foam. Now, obviously, this is designed to increase propulsion and energy return, but as it's made from Pebax, it offers a more forgiving feel and sensation than what you will expect and typically find in a carbon fiber plated model, obviously, and making it more appropriate for training miles. There's also a couple of cutouts in the plate, again, making it less aggressive under your feet. As you can probably tell, the stack height is pretty high. It's a 45mm high heel and a 39mm high forefoot, so there's a lot of foam under your feet, and that's why there's the dual layer midsole. If the whole midsole was DNA cold, it would feel very, very soft underfoot and not necessarily be that stable. Now, interestingly, as you'll have seen on a couple of the clips so far, there is this unique medial cutout in the midsole, and this geometry is designed to create very stable lateral transitions. We will come back to that and talk about that in detail when reviewing how the shoes feel to run in. You'll also be able to notice that there's quite a prominent curve from heel to toe, and that rocker geometry is obviously just designed to help smooth out transitions and help with forward momentum. And just looking at the bottom of the shoe again, there is a very high proportion of outsole rubber. This outsole rubber is really quite thick on the heel area or so, and also on the forefoot. So yes, that does add some weight to the shoes, but critically, it's going to make the shoes a lot more durable and ensure that they're actually going to be able to cope with a lot of training miles, which is exactly what you want from this style of shoe. So on the upper, it is designed to obviously feel light and feel kind of race orientated, but it's a triple jacquard mesh, which is a very premium construction, and that delivers a lot of comfort, a very soft feel and lots of breathability. Now, we have this fully integrated tongue design. You can maybe see this here. There's a couple of straps, so there are some cutouts in it, but it's fully attached. Now, normally with this type of construction, it would be very thin, and it looks like it's quite thin around the heel counter here, but there's actually quite a substantial bit of padding on that tongue there to try and improve the comfort. And again, normally with this style of shoe, it'd be quite thin, quite stripped back here, but maybe you can see on the inside of the heel counter there's quite a lot of padding there to help improve the comfort. So yes, the upper is designed to be stripped back, light, very breathable, but there's a lot of attention that's gone into ensuring that this will feel comfortable and supportive on your feet. So on to the run performance then. Now, as you probably expect, the high stacked midsole feels incredibly protective underfoot and actually very plush. Now, this may lead you to think that the cushioning is going to feel very comfortable at slower speeds and easier efforts, but this is unlikely to be the case, and it's really because the geometry just doesn't feel very stable at that sort of intensity. And I was very aware of my ankle joint and the ligaments around my ankle area when I was running at the lower intensities, which is something I never really experienced in a running shoe. So clearly I was having to take quite a lot of stress and strain in that area. And it's likely the case that this medial cutout is just compromising the stability at those slower speeds. And unless you've got exceptionally stable feet, then you're probably going to find that that's the case. It is worth noting that you do get used to it. I did an 8 kilometre easy run into the office before dropping my bag and going off to do a session in them. And I was definitely starting to get used to that geometry, started to notice a little less strain on my ankle, but wouldn't recommend that for most people. And probably going to find that 1 to 2 kilometres as a warm up or a cool down is the limit of how many easy miles that you want to do in the Hyperion Max. Now, I can't stress how much that changes when you start to pick up the pace. While the cushioning still feels incredibly protective and plush, you just unlock this amazing propulsion, and the instability is almost a thing of the past. And it's really probably down to the fact that when you start to run faster, your feet are then on the ground for less time, and then you're actually getting the benefit of that geometry, that midsole cutout, and that lateral construction is working with your biomechanics in a much more efficient manner, and ultimately probably how it's been intended to work. So to put some numbers on it then, I found the cushioning sweet spot was around 3:30 to 4 minute per kilometre pace. And obviously speed is all relative, but I think that pace range will be pretty relevant to quite a lot of runners. And in terms of effort, you're probably talking those tempo runs up to threshold efforts and even those long marathon sessions. The midsole is responsive enough to cope with some shorter, high-intensity VO2 work, but that's not what it's best suited to. That's where something a little bit lighter and more responsive will obviously be slightly better. But if you are integrating some shorter, faster speed work at the end or start of a longer session, then the cushioning, the midsole geometry can feel very good for that type of pace too. So the best thing about the Hyperion Max 3 cushioning is just how protective and propulsive it feels at those steady to threshold efforts. And I would go as far to say that this is the plushest plated running shoe that I have ever tested. The 45mm high heel just offers incredible protection for heel strikers, and this makes it an amazing option for those long distance sessions. And it's quite ironic because obviously we were saying earlier in the episode that if you're running at easier paces than this, it might cause a bit of stress on your ankle areas. But actually, when you're doing those long, hard intensity sessions, this has the potential to significantly reduce the stress on your working muscles and hopefully reduce that recovery time and maybe make you feel a bit fresher the next day. So the real key, I think, with the Hyperion Max 3 is that you need to use it for the right sessions. And if you do that, there's so many benefits to be found from this level of protection. And even though this model is obviously not World Athletics approved because the stack height exceeds 40mm, this could be a very good marathon racing shoe for some runners, particularly runners who are trying to break 3 hours or around that sort of time, because ultimately at that sort of pace, this midsole should feel more forgiving than an all-out race day model, but it will still offer lots of propulsion, and that increase in comfort should probably translate into a better performance on the whole. When it comes to the fit, we'd recommend choosing your normal running shoe size. It's quite an interesting fit because the ankle collar and the midfoot offer a really supportive fit. They really hug your feet. But in contrast, the toe box has a lot of volume in it. So it's very accommodating, offers a lot of space. So again, making it a good option for those longer distance sessions or marathon racing, because if your feet swell, that shouldn't cause you a problem. But another point on the upper was that I found a thinner sock worked much better with the fit, because all that padding on the tongue and around the heel counter, when I wore a thicker sock with it, almost created a bit too much pressure on my feet. So obviously if you have very thin, narrow feet, you might find that a thicker sock works better, but it might just be a helpful point that wearing a slightly thinner race-inspired sock might offer a slightly more comfortable fit. And also, normally with this style of upper shoe, you have to cinch the laces quite tight to get that security, get that really good foothold. You do not need to do that with this upper. It really locks down onto your feet. So just be careful about over tightening the laces, because you might find, again, you just get a little bit of excess pressure on your feet and you probably find yourself having to stop in the middle of a run and loosen off those laces slightly, which is never what you want to be doing. But really positive that that offers such good lockdown, because sometimes this style of shoe doesn't achieve that. The best comparison models to the Hyperion Max 3 are the Nike Zoomfly and the Mizuno Neo Vista, and that's because all three models offer a lot of protection and energy return and will typically feel pretty good at similar speeds. Obviously, the reality is everyone is going to have a slightly different experience of how those models feel. Now, on paper, the Adidas Boston and the Saucony Endorphin Speed should be quite similar to the Hyperion Max 3 in terms of their end use, but the Boston and the Endorphin Speed offer a much more responsive, much firmer underfoot ride than the Hyperion Max. So hopefully that gives you a bit of a gauge of where this sits in terms of that shoe collection if you run in any of those models. And that's a good point to bring the episode to a close, as hopefully it's very clear what the Brooks Hyperion Max 3 running shoes are best suited to. If you're looking for lots of energy return and propulsion for your speed focused training sessions, but you want lots of underfoot protection and comfort, well, there's going to be very few models which are better than these. And if you're looking for race day shoes that offer that extra energy return and propulsion, but you're seeking a slightly more forgiving and comfortable ride than what a lot of race day models offer, then again, this should be a very good shoe for you. Just to reinforce that point we made earlier, it's not going to be the same for everyone, but we would just caution using this for any easy miles. We certainly wouldn't recommend going out and doing a long, slow run in these. You really want to be running at a certain intensity when your feet are on the ground for a little bit less time than they would be when you're moving at those easier efforts. Thanks very much for watching this episode. We hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions at all, please comment on the episode and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. And as always, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. See you soon.